Hello.
Hi there.
Hello.
Mm.
Steve, you're with Johns Hopkins, yeah?
Yes, yeah, just 5 weeks in. So,
Thanks for joining us. Yeah, I saw your name pop up yesterday, so I was like, oh, perfect.
okay,
Thanks
all
for
right.
joining.
Thanks, Megan.
So you're new to Johns Hopkins or new to the role, Steve? Or
Both.
Both.
Both, yes. So long period in OD and leadership development, but new to Johns Hopkins. So looking forward to it.
Okay, great. Well, welcome. Happy to have you join this group, and we'll be sure to give you an opportunity to hopefully it's usually a large group, so we probably won't do like a round of introductions, but
Okay. And
people-
it's
people
okay.
usually introduce themselves in the
Okay.
chat, but we'll figure it
Okay.
out
Okay.
and give you an opportunity to say hello. But it's a very welcoming group, so hopefully we will
Okay.
feel engaged, and it might just be the three of us, so we can just talk amongst ourselves.
It never is. This is the
It's never-
busiest
yeah.
call, I think. So
Yeah.
awesome.
Does everybody usually keep their videos on, or
Yeah.
would it be offensive if I turned it off? Or?
It's not, you do what
Okay.
is best.
Okay.
Sometimes people will turn it off, they might be eating.
Yeah, that's
So,
what I'm going to be doing. So
yeah,
thank you.
so hi Rachel, good to see you. Welcome. Hi Kim,
Hi,
how are you?
I'm well. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Hi Shelley, hi Julie,
Hello, everyone.
Jason, Janet, Crystal, good to see everybody. We'll give it just, a couple more minutes. I know Alice Wheeler should be joining us too, so we'll wait for her to get on as well. Hi, Alice. You want to wait another minute or so for folks to, okay.
Yeah,
I figured.
everybody who's rushing from something else might need
Yeah.
a minute, especially as more of us are in the office and you're physically moving from one location to another instead of just clicking leave and
I
join.
know.
Nice to see so many faces popping in.
Alice, we do have a new member joining us today with Johns
Oh,
Hopkins. So if we get a chance to welcome Steve to the group, Steve Furman is joining us.
Awesome.
I
Hi,
told
Steve.
him that we
Yeah.
usually don't have time to do a round of introductions because this group is so big, but I
Yeah,
wanted to make him feel welcome. And anyone else who is new, I'm trying to get a quick glance to see who else might be new joining. I think everybody else has been on. So I'm curious, well, I don't want to take up too much time, but how many folks are going back into the office or the hospital setting versus being able to work remote. It seems like that's the norm now, going back for organizations. So,
I mean, I am, but it's kind of my choice, so.
yeah, okay.
But I
We talked about this a little bit, I think, in terms of people who feel that they actually prefer to be around people rather than working remotely.
Yeah, it's definitely top of mind for us. We just our executives have been in the office, but everybody else just came back to the office last week, starting the day after Labor Day. Welcome back. Not full time. The majority of our corporate workforce is hybrid, so still quite a bit of flexibility, but nonetheless, it's a big change.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, well, I think we can probably go ahead, Leanne. My guess is we may have one or two more people joining, but this is probably our core group for today. Welcome, everybody. Leanne will take us through the agenda in a second, but maybe just before we do that, you all, if you are regulars on this call, know that we do usually like to say hello to anyone who's joining us for the first time. And then for the rest of the group, if you can just drop in chat your name, organization, and focus in your role, just because we do have quite a bit of professional diversity in this group, and it gives us a good idea who we have here who might be interested in what. So always during this group, I encourage you to look for somebody you might want to make a connection with outside of our council meetings, because we really just have such a wealth of knowledge and information and experiences to be able to get from each other. So Steve, I think you're up. Would you mind just saying hello to the group and letting us welcome you properly?
Well, thank you for that, Alice. I'm 5 weeks here at Johns Hopkins. I have about 25 years in organizational development and leadership development. And that's what my doctorate is in that lane. But by no means do I feel like I'm an expert. And I'm always learning, and I'm always figuring out how little I know about stuff. So I'm eager to learn from this group and see what kinds of things everybody else is doing, and seeing, how we can work together. So
welcome, Steve.
Thank you.
Anybody else who's joining for the first time today? If you can use the raise hand icon if you don't feel comfortable just jumping in the conversation. No. Okay. All right. Back to you, Leanne.
Let me share my screen. Can everybody see the agenda? I can make it bigger, but hopefully you also had it in the calendar invite.
Yep, we can see it.
Okay.
There's also a little bit of a black box over it, which might be your ribbon of faces.
It is. I don't know how to get rid of that. Someone might have
It's good now. Now we can see.
Is it okay?
All
Okay.
the content. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Let me, and Steve and others who are newer to the council, usually we'll just do a little bit of NCHL business to give you an idea of some upcoming events or offerings, and then the majority of this time is your time to share. So we have some discussion topics for this month, and Alice and everyone can lead that. But let me just remind everybody of our upcoming all-member conference, which is November 13th through the 15th in Chicago. And just a reminder to please try and register by September 29th. I know that sounds maybe early, but it's helpful for us to get an idea of, who will be coming in and get everything, all the logistics squared away. Want to make sure we're accounting for you. And our room block is sold out for Sunday night. The conference starts at 1 p.m. on Monday, so oftentimes many people can fly in Monday morning and still make it for the start of the conference. We do have still our room block available for Monday and Tuesday evenings. So if you go and book and you need a room for Sunday night, don't get discouraged, and please don't feel that you need to book all 3 nights at the group rate. All you need to do is, I know it's a little bit of a complicated, but you can book the room block for Monday and Tuesday night at the discounted rate. If you need a room for Sunday night, you can book it at the group rate separately, but then if you let us know, we can merge your reservation. So it's not like you're having to change rooms for Monday. And that's how you can get still the 2 discounted nights for Monday and Tuesday. So if you have any questions, please let us know. But since Sunday night is sold out, I just wanted to explain that process to you. If you do have any questions still about your promo codes for your complimentary tickets and whether or not you have any left, please again, reach out to us and let us know. But again, for that you do, premium level members receive 3 complimentary tickets, and then we have discounted rates for above and beyond that. Additionally, our signature offering is our Gail Warden Leadership Excellence Awards event that happens Tuesday evening. It's a separate event from the conference. And we heard everyone's feedback from last year that I know a lot of you would like to attend that, but in the past, we never offered like just a discounted ticket for members to attend. So this year we do have a discounted rate, and that promo code ends September 30th as well. And I'm talking like that because I'm going to ask Megan to confirm that that's the case. I think September 30th is, I think, what I remember for that
Yeah.
promo code for the discount.
You're right.
Okay, so I haven't lost my memory completely, but so again, if you'd like to attend, oftentimes organizations and others will sponsor a table. So if you do have a group coming and you want to sponsor a table, we have many options. So just let us know. It's a great event to network and engage with other hospital executives and leaders. And it's a really fun, nice event. It's at the Field Museum in Chicago. So it includes a dinner and networking, etc. Hopefully you all saw the announcement for our next coffee chat on October 4th. This will be presented by Aon, and they will be sharing information about their report on trends in hospital benefits. Those coffee chats, as a reminder, are complimentary. There's no charge to attend. They're about 30 minutes long, short. That's why it's called a coffee chat. And if you can't attend, but still want to, listen to the discussion, I would encourage you to still register, because anyone who registers will receive the recording. And we are still taking, there's still openings for our professional development partnership with Emeritus. We have 4 programs that we are collaborating with them on. At a significant discounted rate for their professional programs. One is targeting CMOs, CHRO. Why can I not see
CNOs.
CNO? I keep wanting to say CFO, and I'm like, why would we do a CFO program? And then one for healthcare business. So please feel free to check out those programs. And if you're interested, there's more information on our website or through the link on the agenda. And then the lessons learned in healthcare leadership development. This is a report that Ren was working on prior to them leaving in partnership with our director of research, Kelly Lambert. We will have one more section of that report and have a compiled report that's ready by the end of the year. But we do have a section of this report that's available now, part of through our store on our portal. It's free, there's no charge. And what this is, it's a compilation of a lot of the data as well as anecdotal information. We have gotten from our BOLD winners, our best organizations for leadership development, who were awarded last year in 2022. And so we have been working with them and getting their insight into their effective and leading practices about leadership development and different topics. So please feel free to download that report if you're interested in kind of hearing some of what your colleagues are doing around leadership development. And then there's still a few spots, I believe, remaining in the level 2 coaching cohort. As you know, we are in partnership with HCI to offer our coaching academy, the basic level 1, and that program actually is wrapping up, I believe, this month. And they have a few slots for anyone who's interested, you know, if you already have an ICF coaching, gone through the basic level, you can join this next cohort that launches in October. So you can check it out on our website. You can get more information or sign up, and and there's a discounted rate as well for any of our Lens members. So those are the updates that I have. Are there any questions, or Megan, did I miss anything?
All good from my end.
Okay, all right, Alice, I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Oh, great. Well, that's awesome. We have a good amount of time left for our discussion. I will just put in a plug for conference for anybody who hasn't attended in the past. It is definitely a really cool opportunity. These council calls are great, but to be able to actually be in person together with peers and colleagues from across the country and have sidebar conversations, go a little bit deeper into things that we're working on. I know that the conversations that I had last year were really rich and meaningful, and have deepened my relationship with some of you and with other organizations throughout the year too. So Chicago's an easy flight or easy drive, depending where you're coming from, and would encourage you to give it some consideration. So I believe that our discussion topics today, I wasn't on the call last time around, but I believe that Ren said that these came out of some conversation that came up at the end of our last council call, or may have been submitted by a member. But they definitely struck me as Ren was sharing them as things that would be valuable for this group to dig into. So you can see the questions here. And I don't know that we have to tackle them in this order, but what I'm really hoping that we can do is have a robust discussion about really how are you effectively leading your diverse talent as far as pipeline development, and I would add retention, which isn't called out here specifically, but knowing that there are certainly challenges. So we've got some specific questions from members in our group around things you've implemented, new programs you've implemented. I would also be curious, and we talk about this anytime we're together, my hope is that this is a safe space for you to also be able to talk about what you're struggling with and what you don't have a solution for, as well as what you do, so that we can learn together, which we can do a little bit from a place of what we're doing well, but we can do probably even better from a place of what we don't yet have perfected. So I'll just open it up. I know that the group is really comfortable using chat, but would love for one or two people to come off of mute and share the experience that they're having in their organization, both in terms of pain points and what you're trying to do. And Megan, if maybe you could paste the discussion topics into the chat and we could take the agenda down so we can see each other. That'll make it easier for me to look meaningfully into people's eyes while they're thinking about whether to speak.
Yep, happy to do that.
Thanks.
Hi, I'll go first. Diane Roberts from Memorial Sloan Kettering. So we have minority, I would say, affinity groups that have leadership. And so that is one way in which we are looking to promote leadership or promote visibility for some groups, within MSK. I will say, the most recent Supreme Court affirmative action decision has caused us to step back a little bit on really utilizing trackable diversity identities in decision making around selection for HIPO programs or something like that. We do, we're an academic institution, and so not exactly sure where that's all going to go, but I will say that has caused some reflection as to what our approach is, as well as, there's so many ways in which you can identify diversity. Most we don't track, race and gender are the other, big ones, but there's lots of other ways in which people are considered diverse, and we don't track those. So I don't know that we have. And so we're being very vague and, just trying to make sure we're considering all backgrounds and experiences being represented in selection for programs or slates or something like that.
Thanks for getting the ball rolling, Diane. And I actually had that on my mind too, is to what extent, if at all, is the affirmative action decision impacting what you're doing in programming? I can imagine for those of us who are associated with universities, there's a stronger tie. But I would add that as a fourth question too. Thanks, Diane. So I'm hearing affinity groups, which I think I would also call maybe business resource groups. Similar. I'm trying to make sure I'm understanding the concept.
Yeah, I think so. Employee resource groups,
Yeah, employee resource groups, great.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Alicia Brownfield, Medical University of South Carolina. And my colleagues actually could speak more specifically about the programs, but we started several years ago a leadership development program specifically for people who are underrepresented, who are self-identifying as underrepresented in the healthcare professions and actually in academic health sciences centers. That's been very successful. It's a 2-year program, and we continue to do that. I would say, as a state institution in a very conservative state, that these are tricky waters, and I know the group has had to tread very carefully about that and the affirmative action group, but the university is committed to continuing those types of programs and enhancing diversity. It's one of our cornerstones.
Jason Chadwell at UK Healthcare. A couple of things that we've been doing, and actually something that's really on the horizon. We have some required new leader trainings. And so as those individuals come into leadership, we are creating more individualized development sessions for them. Previously, we never really had those individual sessions. It was all just in a group setting. So I think working with individuals as individuals to talk through their interests, creating some goals, some development plans, I think that will maybe help support the development of individuals who may kind of feel, kind of believe that they are not ones who will be identified for leadership roles in the future or who will be promoted. So I think just giving them that support early on is going to be helpful. Another thing that we're doing, and it seems a little bit, it may seem minor, but I think it's an important shift, is for so long, the announcements for our leadership programs all went through leaders. So individuals who were interested in leadership, who wanted to better understand how leadership could be part of their career journey, it was really up to their own leaders to identify them. And so one thing that we did was announce our opportunities in our programs enterprise-wide rather than only contacting the leaders. So we opened that up. The other thing that we're doing, which has been a slow shift, has been moving from a true nomination process to an application process. And we still want to see support from their leaders because that's important. But it's not only the hand-picked people. So it seems like a minor shift, but I think it may have some positive impacts.
Hi, I'm Bridget Partey with Master General Brigham, and I'm on our People and Org Development team. And now we have a DE&I team as well, so I'm not sure what new initiatives that they're coming up with because they've combined and they're crafting strategies as we speak. But to the last gentleman's point of having people, apply themselves versus just being tapped on the shoulder, in my past experiences, I found that opened up the pool much more when people were able to go ahead and apply themselves. We had information sessions and let them know what the program requirements were. And my whole goal in doing that program was making sure that it was like the same type of people were being nominated, and it wasn't diversifying our pool. So when we opened it up and people let them nominate, and I had a completely diverse panel of individuals that did the interviews, and so everybody was kind of critiqued equally, and that did ruffle some feathers where people were using. I was in Atlanta, Georgia at the time, so we had Alabama, Georgia, now and South Carolina as our region. So to Alicia's point, it was a very conservative area, and they did not like that change, but we weren't seeing any differences in our candidate pools and our leadership. We were seeing our retention numbers weren't that great. Our employee relations numbers went up, because we just didn't quite have the same right people in place because they were just chips off the old block, if you will. So when we opened it up, it changed the whole landscape, and we had more people than ever apply because they saw it was safe now to apply. It was more universal. You had a chance. You didn't have to be related to somebody, and you didn't have to go golfing with that person. It was more universal. And that was the first year we had like 100% of people recommend the program to others because they saw we'd opened up, took off that veil of secrecy about the program and opened it up to people that want, and they had to compete though. They all were measured on the same factors, their backgrounds, their performance reviews, all that. But when we took off that veil and said, no more, we want people to apply that really have the desire and an interest to do that. We found that had a great impact on changing the program for a positive, if you will. So
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing, Bridget.
sure. And this wasn't an MGB, by the way. This is another employer, but I'm just saying, to that gentleman's point, when we opened it up like that, it did have a positive impact. And I'm sure that it's no different than any other place that has the same kind of traditions and practices in place where people are just handpicked versus letting them compete fairly.
Yeah.
Hey, Alice, this is Casey Nickel with Norton Healthcare. We are taking a look at our job descriptions for entry-level leadership roles across the system. In the past, we have required 3 to 5 years of leadership experience for especially like a manager role, if you will. And we've noticed at the supervisor level that the experience requirements were 3 to 5 years in the role. We're taking a look at that to say, do we really need people to have 3 to 5 years of experience as a sterile processing tech, for example, before we would consider them to be a sterile processing supervisor? And I think that we're making headway in terms of what that looks like, because I think that the answer is no. If they're a competent sterile processing tech and we can continue to develop their leadership skills, then it probably doesn't make sense that they have 3 to 5 years of experience, as long as we can get them those leadership skills that they need. So we're doing that across the board.
That's great. That really removes a barrier to entry and allows for vertical growth. Jennifer, did you come off mute?
Nope, sorry. I was just late getting to the party, so I'm
Oh.
trying to look at the agenda. I jumped from one meeting to the next, so sorry about that.
Oh, no problem. We're happy to have you here. Yeah, you can look at the meeting agenda, or Megan's posted the questions we're discussing in chat, and we're not going really in order. We're just kind of addressing it all around.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Oh, I can share some of Ohio Health's place on this, and then Kim and Julie would welcome any additions from you as well. We do have affinity groups that are pretty robust here. That's operated through our diversity team, as well as local campus diversity and inclusion groups that do a lot of good homegrown things that tend to vary by the care sites. And we'll probably talk about what one of those is. Kim, I'm hoping you can talk a little bit about the doctor's program, but holistically, outside of that, in our talent management function, we do use a diversity lens when we're doing talent review, to make sure that our talent review processes are unbiased, and actually to discuss that overtly in the room at the end of each talent review, to say, hey, if we look at this from a racial and gender lens, does this still look right? Now, to the point of what do we consider diversity, we are pretty focused on leaders of color as our main metric. And we know that's not everything, but it's a place that we really need to focus, because we are not as good as we want to be. And we really want to make sure that we represent the communities we serve. And we've got room to grow with that as it pertains to our leaders, not in our staff level, and not I think in our physician level, which Julie can probably speak to. We had been tracking underrepresented minority physicians and have stopped because we've gotten to a place where we're really good. We're where we want to be from a metrics perspective there. So in our talent processes, we really have tried to focus on making sure that we're fairly evaluating and advancing leaders of color, and when we are placing in high potential programs, we prioritize spots for leaders of color who have been identified as high potential, just to make sure that we're doing everything we can to remove barriers. And we're not planning on changing any of our approaches around that with regards to the affirmative action decision. Where we have been asked to hold for a second is what we were planning to do, which was we have wanted to add a new metric related to specifically that first promotion into a leadership role. So for our associates of color, the very first leadership spot, because like many of you, we sometimes find that our diverse hiring metrics and our promotion metrics are at odds. And we don't want that to be the case. We want all of our associates to be able to grow in their career. And if the barrier to entry is that first management role, we want to be able to help our associates be able to make that upward move, and also address barriers in the hiring, and be able to notice where are people not comfortable hiring a first-time leader who doesn't look like them, because there's work to do there too, which isn't about the individual, but about the system. So that's work that we have been really excited to tackle this year, and are sort of, I think our hope is to continue to build and design processes that will help us do that, so that we're ready to go as soon as our legal feels clear to do so. But I think it's work that we really believe is the right thing to be doing. And then Kim, do you want to talk about the local doctors program?
Yes, thank you so much, Alice. At Ohio Health, we have a specific care site that piloted a program last year and it continued this year, called Let's Talk Leadership. And it's specifically geared towards developing leaders of color at a particular care site or hospital. The program is a two-part program. The first part goes through a system-wide program called Emerging Leader. And so for persons who have not, as Alice described, hit the first leadership rung, that program is designed to help all persons, regardless of their culture identification allows them an opportunity to establish more in a more in-depth fashion leadership skill sets to help prepare them. One of my models is always, you don't have time to get ready, you have to be ready. And so we're really trying to create programs and enhance programs to help persons to be ready for when that opportunity does come their way. The second part of the doctor's program, Doctors Hospitals program called Let's Talk Leadership, is you go through that emerging leader program, then you go into this second part where you do a deeper dive into the concepts that are discussed in the first emerging leader program. You have a mentor that is assigned to you, and you have coaching sessions at least monthly with that person. And then you have one-on-one sessions and small group sessions with experts, subject matter experts throughout our healthcare network on topics such as relationship building, networking, communication, troubleshooting. And so when you marry those two components together, it has resulted in the first year, 2 persons being promoted, being ready when those opportunities came and going for them and receiving them. And so in that second year of the program, we're expecting to see even greater results. That was great. And so we know it's working and preparing persons for that first leadership position. Thanks, Alice, for the opportunity to share about the Let's Talk Leadership program.
And Julie, from your perspective, anything in the physician world that you want to highlight?
So we have a lot of things on kind of hold right now. I would say the one place I would see us diving into, hopefully sooner than later, is one of our collaborations within the Physician Leadership Academy and one of our business resource groups here at Ohio Health, which is entitled We Lead. It's our female-focused business resource group. And out of that We Lead group, we have a subgroup of female physicians that I've developed programming for in the past, and they're doing a little bit of a restructure within the We Lead. So once all that leadership, I think, comes into play, I'll be tying back into We Lead to see what we can do to offer support to our female physicians. But other than that, most of what's listed in the questions are kind of outside of my scope at this point.
And I just in the spirit of vulnerability, I'll say that we have been traditionally better at hiring leaders of color than we have at retaining leaders of color. And so we've got some serious work to do as far as understanding what is the lived experience that we're having in the organization, and can we get really honest about how we address that. Love to hear from a couple other organizations too.
I can share a couple of different mentoring programs that we have at Hopkins. I don't know if anybody's familiar with those or not. One, and that's the call that I just came from for Johns Hopkins Hospital specifically. They have a mentoring program for underrepresented minorities. More frontline level leaders, so supervisors and managers, get paired up with directors and VPs within the hospital. It's about an 8-month-long program. They have a mentoring experience, and then they are exposed through different parts of the organization by from different tours. They meet with other executive leaders, and then they have some education experiences as well. As it relates to building your resume, interviewing, and things along those lines. We also have another mentoring program that's for the system. So it's inclusive of all the different hospitals as well as the School of Medicine. And that one is really more for that higher level leader. So most of them are already at that director level. So they're meeting with mentors that are either presidents or other CNOs, CFOs, etc., to really prepare them for their next step. And we use with that group, they do the PRISM, which is through SurePeople. And they do a self-assessment where they're really learning more about their own styles and how that impacts them as leaders and the people that they're surrounded by. They get so this is there's actually a 3-part kind of mentoring circle, if you will. Here there's the protege, the mentor, as well as an executive sponsor. So each protege almost has 2 mentors. The mentor is really somebody to give some career guidance and really kind of help them think about things differently. The sponsor is somebody who really gives them exposure. They might be bringing them to other meetings and, clearing paths for them to explore and grow their career. We're in our we will be starting our 3rd cycle of that this fall. So that's been a really great program where we've seen and from both of those programs, actually promotions have occurred, not as a result of, but as because of the different work that they've done and the exposure that they've gained through those programs. So those are like 2 big things that we're working on. Our executive leadership development program, that's a year-long program. We do look at race, gender, et cetera, to kind of make sure we're well balanced throughout the system for those within that program as well. It's not a criteria, but we try to look for balance there. And that's a year-long program that it's a cohort of about 32 people where they go together and really exposing them to kind of we travel to each of the hospitals within the system. They get a tour, they meet with the presidents there. They have the opportunity to work on a strategic project for the organization. So we're trying to, involve them in a lot of different discussions and talks and new ways of thinking about organizational leadership. So that's just a couple of quick highlights of some of the things we have.
Thanks, Jennifer. We would never know you were not here for the beginning of the conversation.
I have a question, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
And Alice, it's really for you. So when you were talking about understanding the lived experience of your leaders, as we've gone through the process of kind of creating a plan for our employee experience and wanting to ensure that all of our employees are having a great experience, we learned that there are in fact pockets of people who aren't necessarily having as good the great experience that most people are having. So I wondered if you found any particular method of trying to capture those lived experiences particularly helpful. And if so, what are those methods that you've used?
That's a great question. We are actually partnering with Shaker, and they have a benchmarkable lived experience survey. We haven't rolled it out yet, but we're planning to, I'm crossing my fingers, planning to roll it out in November. I just took it to test drive the tool and felt like, gosh, this is really going to make some of our senior leaders very, very nervous, which is why I'm crossing my fingers, because I think they're questions that we need to be asking, but not that we maybe want to hear the answer to. Okay. But 2, I think if we can get a good response, will give us a great deal of clarity. And the lived experience surveys for everyone. So we really do want to ask everyone, but we'll also be able to cross-reference that with demographic information to get to where is it not the same experience that we like to talk about. And some of so anyway, I was really impressed with the question set, and I'll see if it's something that I can share, Shelley, because I do think it would be really interesting, but that there are some that I think everybody will feel comfortable answering. There are other questions that people are going to immediately look at the question and say, this question is not for me.
Yeah.
But the fact that I don't have to answer this a certain way represents my privilege that I may not have been paying attention to. So there are specific questions around, do I feel comfortable if 3 people who look like me are standing together in the hall? How often am I the first person asked to speak in a meeting, and things like that.
Yeah, thank you for that. I was just gonna ask you, like, what are some examples of the types of questions
Yeah,
that they ask? And, we use an engagement survey like a lot of
Yeah.
organizations, and we have an annual survey, and we're currently looking for possible ways to gain, that type of feedback on a more regular cadence. But so I
Yeah.
was gonna ask you, so what's the difference in the type of questions you would see
Yeah.
on that's something
Yeah.
like that versus an engagement survey? So
How often am
thank
I the only person in the leadership meeting who looks like me?
wow.
Is one of the questions. Did somebody who looks like me participate in interviewing me for my role? Is my performance evaluation completed by someone who looks like me? And
Wow.
so it is, you really, as you take the questions pay, it brings, regardless of your answer, it brings to the surface things that we should be thinking about.
I
There,
like those questions.
yeah, I mean,
That'd be
one
awesome.
of them was, do you feel you have to alter your outside of work appearance to be accepted inside of work? So really,
Wow.
I think, they say inquiry is intervention. I think just the act of asking the questions
Oh,
is
yeah.
an intervention. And you can get why I'm a little bit nervous about
Yeah, you might need to
my
eat
boss and my boss's
instead of
boss being
that.
good with me sending the survey out broadly. And yet I think I believe in it.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. If you find that you
Yeah.
are able to forward that, I would love to see it.
Okay, I'm making a note for myself. Go ahead, Janet.
Thank you.
Shelley's question, so from
Oh.
Schaefer, is there a recommended cadence for administering that so that you can assess progress in that space, or is it recommended after a certain time period, after particular actions designed to change the
Yeah.
culture?
I mean, I think we would want to do it annually, although that it takes more than 1 year to meaningfully shift the culture, but it would be good to be able to see progress.
Okay, so that's your plan for now, is an annual basis. And in addition to that, are you doing any other sort of employee experience or engagement survey?
Yeah,
And would this replace that?
No, we view this as additional to our employee engagement survey, which we do an annual employee engagement survey as I guess most people do, and we typically do a pulse of a smaller subset of the questions halfway through the year on certain things that we're keeping an eye on, but we'll retain our regular engagement survey because there are a lot of questions in that are used to measure progress on many different things. Like, for instance, there's a bundle of questions about the experience you have with your one-up manager in that engagement survey that we use to create a manager capability index. And one of our goals for the year is to move the manager capability index from like 78 to 83. So we can't change those question sets. So this we view as being something outside of that helps us understand. I would almost consider it a belonging survey, which is part of the employee experience, but something that we want to go deeper into.
Right, it's a nice supplement.
Yeah.
To that, to give you that full, well-rounded picture of the employee experience.
Yeah, and just because you can never survey too much, we also do the Great Place to Work Trust Index survey, which some of you guys may do too. And
Yes.
we every year say, is this too many surveys? But for us, the data we get from the Trust Index survey is really good, and it's not the same information we're getting in the other places.
And what are you using for engagement? And this is the last question. I apologize.
And we
I'm
have been
monopolizing
using, we have
time.
been using Perceptix, but we're moving to
Okay.
Gallup.
All right.
So
Thank you.
I'll take advice and emotional support for that transition offline. Deneen?
Hi, everyone, and I apologize for joining late, but I was conducting a safe zone training. Even before, okay, I know Alicia has already said some things about Bright, and I was going to say that, but I've gotta pause and say I really appreciate the allyship in you even bringing that forward. It makes me emotional, and I say that because this is probably one of the first times in 25 years that someone besides me and a person looking like me brought up the experience, because I'm always at the table as the only one and no one ever asked me my experience. I don't know what that is for anybody else. I'll only speak for me. So can you imagine always being on the front line of the war and no one even wants to bring you any water,
Yeah.
and everybody, so it's always that casualty of, so I really appreciate and want to take that this time just to say how much that is appreciated and how great it is to have someone else do it and not have to bear the burden of being the person that is doing it and doing it for yourself when no one, it's almost like you're not a person when you're sitting there and you're like, oh no, we're surveyed to death. We can't do anymore. I just said something that would impact me too. And no
Right.
one heard me. Is surveyed to death, but you are treating me like that. So that's just like profound. And I, thank you. And thank you for each of you that are doing things like that. And I think one thing that comes up for me is then to what happens when people are asked and we're vulnerable enough to give the information, what is done with it, and not people who will walk in privilege and then say, well, does that really happen? And they go to the one Black person or one person of color that it didn't happen to, but the rest of us are sitting there yeah, it happens every day. Like you're doing it right now. Microaggression city, not even micro anymore. So I really appreciate that, because I think more needs to be done, because the recruitment is great, but I'm with you with the retention. People staying in every day sometimes it's a struggle. And I've been at MUSC for 15 years. And in addition to being the Associate Chief Officer for Inclusive Excellence, I'm tenured faculty now. So there is a difference. And I think that the way we look at things is different, because I'm not a clinician, but I work with training and inclusive excellence for the entire enterprise. So that's the first part. So thank you. With our David J. and Catherine Cole Bright Leadership Academy, with Bright standing for Building and Retaining Inclusive High Potential Talent and Excellence, it really is designed and it's for marginalized groups. I think so many times when people see or hear it, they think automatically Black, and that's not true, because you could be marginalized in so many different ways. And we don't define marginalized for this group. When they apply and we go through the blind process, they have to explain within the questionnaire how they are marginalized, because I think too often we may limit ourselves to what that means, especially in leadership, because it is, we have, for instance, let me give you an example, a white female who has always been in, she calls it lower level and not able to attain leadership, but she attributes it to being raised poor and being seen in that way. And so that is very different, whereas sometimes somebody would not think of that versus LGBTQ or maybe Black, or so ways, and and we're open and we have a committee, so we don't even know names, we know numbers and pseudonyms and stuff. We don't know who is going to get in until after everything is selected, which is surprise city, can be very interesting. But our program is a 2-year program, and it is really at no cost, but it's a cost, because 8 hours once a month for 2 years, where your leader has to sign off that they commit to that time as sacred time for these leaders and potential leaders to then be able to be in this space and not get called away. That in itself is the gift. And not the fact that it's named after the president and the first lady of MUSC, and they are the first guests and speakers and the conversation that continues to happen, but that we continue to track and make sure where people are, what they're doing, what it means, other programs they're in, and all of those things. But I think one of the things I will say that I hope, Alicia, you haven't said, because I don't want to be redundant, especially in limited time, is in the 3rd cohort now, which then means we're going into 6 years. is the amazing progression and things that we see, even with leaders noticing folks that they never noticed before. There are people that folks pass by every day. We've had people who say, I pass by so-and-so all the time. Now they know who I am. I passed by them for 5 years and they didn't even acknowledge me in the hallway. So it's showing that it's not always that it's a malicious intent, and not saying that yeah, sometimes it is, let's just be honest. But when you bring it to folks' attention, then folks have to pay attention. And then now we can have the conversations when it is time for recruitment, when it is time for positions that have you thought about. And now we're even having people who will say, we have this position, we know you have bright ambassadors. Is there anybody you think at least that you can ask or that we can talk to, or is there any preparation? The second year is about shadowing. We don't do mentoring as much as shadowing, so they can see positions, and then we're finding that the ambassadors, when they go, that they then find out that this is something they want to do, or a person they would want to ask, because we just believe in that mentoring relationship not being forced, but being in a partnership that is going to be mutually beneficial, because sometimes that does not always work in certain ways. And people sometimes think that, oh, you have a great job, or that title sounds good, until they really see what it is, or that it may be something different than what they expected. So we're in year 2 now, so we're just starting year 2. And so the didactic components that go with that, but definitely with the shadowing and making sure we're looking at matching folks, and, you know, the busy leaders who move and leave and everything else, and making sure that occurs in that way. But knowing that they now have they're equipped in year 1 with the health leadership competency model, and all of the things that they've learned that most didn't know, applying it to operationalize it for the Medical University of South Carolina, so it can be applicable to who we are and what we do across this enterprise, so they can be placed, then putting them with someone who is in these positions so they can see it at work and ask questions based on didactic components that they learn throughout year 1. So just a little bit about it.
I'm really energized hearing about it. We probably have enough time to hear from 1 or 2 other people.
I have a question, if there's no one else, a comment and a question, if I may. I want to thank you, Dr. Deneen, for your comments. And I will tell you why. Number 1, they were spot on. 2, what they made me think about is the leader themselves and the character of that person. So I will share with you your comments regarding Alice and her bringing this up and looking different than us is greatly appreciated. It is who Alice is. And so it made me think about, how are we preparing, encouraging, equipping other leaders to have that same courage, that same allyship, action at hand, to be in a position to do such, because it may not be a comfortable space for everyone. Everyone may not be prepared. They may not even know, how do I show up in this way to be an advocate or to be an ally? And so are there toolkits, are there sessions that our healthcare systems on this call are offering to help leaders in that space?
I think you just identified a gap, Kim.
Let's take on that challenge
Yeah.
and put something together as a team.
Put it on, let's put it on the list. I like the invitation to think about it collectively too, as we know that we have a lot of people on this call and organizations that are willing to do great work. So this would be great work to add. All right. how about when we send out the notes, we could gauge some interest in doing a follow-up call specifically on that. And let's think about what it could look like, because the creation of something new is one of the things that this council has been interested in doing, and leveraging the best practices that we have and creating new things. And that feels like a good place to stop today. Well, as always, appreciate each of you for coming, for bringing your voice to the table and sharing the experience you're having in your organizations, and look forward to continuing this conversation, and also seeing you all again next month.
Thanks, everyone.
Great. Thank you.
Have a good
Bye.
day.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Bye-bye,
bye.
everybody.